Our Friday, we'll kick off our weekend on a bit of a wet note. For our Sunday. That's your forecast for the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Give the gift of confidence with professional tooth whitening at Crawford and Colvin Dentistry in from take-home trays or in-office options. Crawford and Colvin Dentistry, where smiles are crafted with care. Visit LakeNormanDentist.com.
Prioritizing your health is one of the best ways to take care of yourself. From routine visits to the joys of pregnancy to the illnesses that stop you in your tracks, Iredell Health System will be by your side. Learn more at iredellhealth.org.
The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the views of WSIC.
Hello and welcome to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. 4 o'clock hour on a Thursday. If you're a 9 to 5er, you've got 53 minutes, 24 seconds till you hit that 5 o'clock bell. And I appreciate you spending that time with us here on Dollars and Cents as we give attention to all things economic and financial. Now, you know, as a previous listener to the show, again, we're talking on any number of subjects. We're going to be doing that again here today. We're going to be looking at specific companies. Some we're going to look at in a positive light. Others we may look at in a not so positive light. But in doing so, you know, again, that as a previous listener, that nothing that we're talking about here is intended as a specific recommendation for you. Meaning that even though we're looking at some companies, again, positively, negatively, we got earnings, got big banks that are out there right now. They're making earnings reports, including some of our local favorites here. That in doing so, no recommendation to buy, sell, or hold. Very, very important that you take a look at your own specific financial situation and make those decisions accordingly. And then in doing so, take a look at your advisors, other folks who may be a part of your decision-making circle in doing that. But if you'd like to reach out to us at North Main Financial Group, love to hear from you. Love to chat about your particular financial situation, see if there are ways in which we might be able to be helpful to you. Online, you can find us at northmainfinancial.com. That's north like the direction, main like the street, financial.com. northmainfinancial.com. We have a contact page on there. Leave us an email address, phone number. Let us know the most preferred and desirable ways for us to contact you, again, at northmainfinancial.com. You'd like to call us here in the studio. You got a question? Something coming across your radar screen? I'll bet. As we're getting here into the start of 2025, probably looking at some year-end statements, maybe thinking about, I know, taxes, they're coming. They're coming, whether you want them to or not. None of us like them, but they're coming. Getting those tax returns, getting them compiled and filed here, ready to go here in a little bit. Always welcome to call into the studio. Can't promise you we're going to get your specific question on the air during this show. I promise you, though, we're going to write it down. Producer Reese is going to write it down. I'll make sure that I get to it. I promise you. Keep listening. I'll get to it, and I will make sure that I give my best thoughts to it, or I'll tell you that I have no idea. And I'm very willing to do that as well. I'm not going to make it up, not going to pretend like that I know something that I don't. So if it's something that I don't know, I'll be sure to mention that to you as well. 844-STUDIO-4, 844-788-3464. That's 844-788-3464 here in the studio. Feel free to call. And again, if I can't get to your question, I promise you during this show that I will get to it in next week's show. Make sure that we talk about it here. All right, let's get running. As I mentioned, this is one of my favorite times. And you hear me say this approximately 4 times a year, give or take, depending upon how you look at earnings season. It's earnings season. We're right in the middle of it right now for a number of companies, especially in the financial sector. Big banks are out there with their earnings, and I got to start there. I mean, I got to start with one of the hometown ones here. Looking at the Charlotte region, tough to say that there is a company that has has more of an influence. Sorry about that. Has more of an influence than Bank of America. Huge employer here, huge presence here in Charlotte for so many years, not just on the professional end of things, but whether you're talking about the community, whether you're talking about the arts. I mean, they are a huge, huge influence here in the region. Came out with quarterly earnings. And I got to tell you, folks, by the way, Bank of America, ticker symbol Bravo Alpha Charlie, BAC, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock. I got to tell you, folks, I mean, they crushed it. They just did. I mean, and I'm saying that not just in terms of just making hyperbole about the earnings, but I would say that for a company the size of Bank of America, if you so looking at quarterly earnings, if you've doubled up year over year, even if you're coming off a low point, if you've doubled up year over year, that's big. And they did that. They had doubled up year over year, the quarterly earnings. They literally did a 2x. And yes, there was a little bit of, for a couple different reasons last year, there's a little dip in the earnings end of things, but it wasn't a terrible quarter last year. They're just doing fabulously well. And so Bank of America came out, quarterly earnings really, really did well. Very similar, actually, a competitor. Not completely one-to-one, but definitely a competitor in the same industry. Morgan Stanley, ticker symbol Mary Sam MS, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock or the bonds. Looking at that end of things, Morgan Stanley, similar. They also doubled up. They doubled up their profit here, meaning their percentage of growth here over the last year, looking at just quarterly earnings. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, we're talking about not just tens of billions, but hundreds of billion-dollar companies. I mean, these are huge, huge organizations, tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of employees. It's very, very hard to have that kind of growth in a year-over-year kind of period. Even if you're coming out of a low point, even if you're coming out of a quarter that maybe last year wasn't all that great, so it's kind of easy or maybe easier to look at it year over year and say, boy, they really crushed it. I mean, yes, last year had some hiccups associated with it, especially coming out of the regional banking crisis that was still echoing through the system at that time. But folks, when you're looking at, again, groups like Morgan Stanley, like Bank of America, that are coming out, doubling up their quarterly earnings on a year-over-year basis, that's reason to take a look at it. So why did that happen? I'm going to talk about that for just a minute here. Why did that happen? Well, different reasons for different companies. There's no single bullet as the reason why they did that. But I'm going to offer up a couple of macro suggestions here. And I was just talking about this just before we came on the air as well. And because there are some things that are different in this environment than there have been for the last, I'm going to say 15, almost 20 years. Now, meaning there are different things in terms of the banking, financial end of the universe. I'm looking at interest rates. I mean, I'm looking at interest rates. And when I'm doing that, I'm looking at it at a couple of different levels. First of all, I got a 30-year treasury near 5%. And I haven't had a 30-year treasury near 5% here for a decade and a half. So when I'm looking at that benchmark kind of instrument that's sitting out there, near 5%, that changes the universe. It changes the universe, not just in terms of folks who are buying and selling the 30-year U.S. Treasury, but it affects how loans are issued, how lines of credit are issued, what margins that banks are able to achieve in terms of how they buy dollars and how they loan dollars. And folks, that very, very quickly, 101, rough and dirty, that's with the savings and loan style institution, that's how they make money. They buy it cheap, they loan it a little bit more expensive, they keep the spread, that's how they make their money. So when you have higher interest rates, it's an opportunity for larger financial institutions to increase their profit margins, and that in part, not the only reason, but that in part, I think, is one of the reasons why we're starting to see these profits jump. Because it's not just the big financial institutions, it's not just the Bank of America's, Morgan Stanley's of the world. We're seeing it in the regional banks as well. And when I talk about regional banks, I'm talking about smaller capitalization, more let's say geographically focused kinds of financial institutions. We also tend to look at those smaller print kinds of banks, meaning smaller print in terms of geographic reach. We also tend to look at those. They tend to be more traditional savings and loan style institutions, meaning that the majority of their profit, generally speaking, for most of them, not all, but for most of them, comes from deposits on hand, loans that they extend, and being able to create a spread or a margin there. That is especially where we're starting to see some significant impact on the fact that we have higher interest rates. And I'm saying that in a positive way. You look at some of the indexes that track the regional banking index that's out there, the KBW that's out there that tracks these kinds of things. Definitely seeing regional banks, smaller banks as well, really benefiting from these higher interest rates and able to have larger prints in terms of profit margins. It's a big deal. It's a very big deal. We're going to talk more about it here in the second quarter. I appreciate so much you hanging with us here on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. We're going to take a few seconds and hear from our sponsors, but hang with us here as we come back in a few moments here on WSIC.
There's more of Dollars and Cents with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi on the way from 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Or emerging a bit from our big chill yesterday. Plenty of sunshine. Temperatures will climb back up to around 50 for this afternoon, even some low 50s in some spots around Lake Norman. Tonight we'll drop it back into the mid and upper 20s once again, back into the low and mid 50s for our Friday. We'll kick off our weekend on a bit of a wet note. Looks like rain likely for our Saturday morning. A bit drier for the afternoon and an isolated shower possible for our Sunday. That's your forecast for the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
The WSIC app is available now wherever you get your apps, featuring local deals from great local businesses, like Top Notch Gutters of Statesville.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. Thursday, January 16th, Ryan Winters performs at Bin 110 in Cornelius. Lake Norman's upscale night spot has over 450 whiskeys, 100 wines, and a full cocktail list to go through their live music lineup every Thursday through Saturday. Kick off the weekend early with the Ryan Winters music performance Thursday at Bin 110. Friday night, Bill Douglas performs at the Wine Maestro in Statesville. Join Bill for your favorite pop acoustic songs of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, plus flavorful originals. Bill Douglas performs in downtown Statesville Friday night at the Wine Maestro. Beer Lab in Mooresville presents their Paint and Sip Date Night series this Saturday. Come with your significant other or get your friends together for a fun night of painting and sipping. Meg Art Pottery will bring a variety of painting pieces to choose from. Your $30 ticket includes one pottery piece, paint, glaze, and firing. We will see you Saturday for the Paint and Sip Date Night series at Beer Lab in Mooresville. 'Tis the season to lace up your skates at Birkdale on Ice, happening now through January 26th. Birkdale Village in Huntersville has their ice skating rink ready, and they can't wait to lace up their skates with you. Ice skating reservations to ensure skating time slots are accepted. Walk-ups are also welcome. Go to BirkdaleVillage.com for details, information, and tickets to Birkdale on Ice. At Charlotte Motor Speedway, the action does not stop at being just a spectator at a race. You can drive a NASCAR race car by yourself. If you are looking to grab the wheel and drive a race car or take a NASCAR ride-along, then the Richard Petty driving experience will give you an unforgettable time. Book the Richard Petty driving experience today at 704-886-2400. Visit CharlotteMotorspeedway.com for details and more information. To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
It's Dollars and Cents with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Second quarter of today's show, Football Reference. It's football season. We're still in it, right? We're still in it. I mean, your team may not be in it. And I know there are a lot of disappointed folks right now, especially if you're talking about the college football bowl season, or I guess not just the bowl season, college football bowl and playoff season. If you're talking about the NFL with the playoff, I get it. You may be disappointed right now. Your team's not in it anymore. We got the college football national championship coming up here in a couple of days as of the time of this live broadcast, or as of the time of this recording, if you happen to be listening to it. And so we got that coming up here in a couple of days. We're in the thick of NFL playoffs as well. Our Carolina Panthers are not in it this year, but next year, hope springs eternal. Everybody starts out at 0-0. Nobody gets any bonus points. So it doesn't matter who wins the Super Bowl this year. Our Carolina Panthers coming into next year are going to have as much opportunity as anybody else to be in next year's Super Bowl, and that's where I'm leaving that. All right, let's keep going. Keep going here. We're talking about regional banks there towards the end of the first segment, right before we went to break there. We're talking about regional banks and even some of our big banks, like the especially hometown favorite here, Bank of America, in terms of its presence here in Charlotte, just really coming out with some amazing earnings. And talk about some of the reasons for that. You know, the increase in interest rates, the opportunity for higher spreads, bigger margins there. It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays through the balance of 2025, because at this point, certainly with the kinds of things that we're seeing at North Main Financial, it appears that we're going to have interest rates maintain and maybe even flutter up a little bit from where we are right now for the balance of 2025. Let me say it differently. I don't see that the Federal Reserve is going to do much, if any, additional interest rate cutting in 2025 at this point. I don't see that at this point. Certainly the bond market is not trading that way. And that we watch that a lot because that tends to be an indication, certainly on the institutional side, of investor sentiment about where they believe that the Federal Reserve's going, where they believe that interest rates are going. We watch that very, very closely. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. A later segment here, that's a little bit of a teaser. I want you to hang around. We're going to be talking about all kinds of good stuff, including what's coming next. Now, this next entity, this next business is not a publicly traded company. So I really can't give you a ticker symbol with regards to it, but my gosh, are they hitting the news right now. Just talking about that with a couple of folks before I came on air here. And as soon as I say the name, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And you'll know I'm not talking about timekeeping devices when I say TikTok. Yeah, TikTok. A lot in the news right now, a lot of noise about how they're not going to, or there's going to be a shutdown in accessibility here in the U.S., and that's due to national security concerns because TikTok is owned by a group called ByteDance, not B-I-T-E, but B-Y-T-E for all you computer programming folks that are out there. And essentially, it's owned by the Chinese government. It is. I mean, that's not a political statement of any kind. It essentially is. And so, for national security concerns, there have been overtures made. There's actually a law in place that says coming up here in a couple of days that there's not going to be accessibility here in the U.S. to that platform again because of concerns about concerns about national security. We'll see if that happens. What's also been interesting as we've come closer to this deadline is to hear from a number of folks, especially publicly, who are talking about the possibility of buying the platform. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. I can't imagine that ByteDance / the Chinese government is going to sell it. Makes too much money. They're that kind of machine right now with the literally billions with a B users on it. Can't imagine that it's going to be sold, especially not going to be sold to anybody here in the U.S. Now, is there a U.S. accessibility platform that might be bought by some U.S. entity or someone here in the U.S.? Maybe. I don't know. I'm certainly not gifted enough, technologically speaking, to be able to speak into that. But it's huge. It is huge. I mean, we're not just talking about market capitalization because they're not publicly traded, but we're talking about the amount of influence, the amount of certainly social media penetration that they have. I mean, I'm not on TikTok. You can go search for me on there. It's going to be disappointed. You're not going to find me. I'm not saying you're going to go look for me, but there are all kinds of people, literally millions of people on there, millions of different accounts, billions of people who use the platform. It's amazing the outreach, the touch points, the number of folks who are using. That's why I think at some level, there's going to continue to be accessibility here in the U.S. on TikTok. I don't know how that's going to take its shape. I don't know how we're going to work around the national security concerns, but because of the amount of usage of it, I can't imagine that it's going to go away. So when you're looking at the folks who have mentioned interest, Mark Cuban, I mean, very well known, right? Shark Tank and also previous owner of the Dallas Mavericks, that he said, I might be interested in something like that. Elon Musk has been rumored to be out there as possibly one. Certainly, I think he has the financial heft to be able to do it. I don't know what the sale price would be because, again, it's not publicly traded, and I certainly haven't seen the books on it. But he has been one who has been rumored out there. And there's another gentleman. I'll admit I don't know him. You probably do. Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast. I mean, he's got millions of followers on social media. I mean, this guy, he's doing videos. He's got he went on a video and said might be interested in buying it or would be interested in having those kinds of conversations to be able to pick it up. So there definitely appears to be interest in that kind of thing. Will it be something that comes to fruition? I don't know. I don't know if that's something that's actually going to come about, but it's the amount of usage, the amount of interest, the amount of just the touch points. I mean, the number of folks who interact with it, I mean, it dwarfs. When you're looking at Instagram, when you're looking at Meta now, Meta, the parent company of Facebook, I mean, it really does. I mean, so there's a tremendous amount of economic advantage if we're talking about marketing and outreach in having some level of access to TikTok. That's one of the reasons why I think it's going to continue to be accessible in some way, but I mean, not to be making a pun here, but we are tick-tocking towards the deadline as far as the accessibility is concerned here over the next several days. As of the time of this live broadcast or recording, if you're listening to it, be interesting to see how that's going to shake out. We're going to be watching. We'll still talk about it here because it's a big deal, even though I literally don't know how to use it. I mean, Mamie here, she had to tell me that that the difference between Instagram and TikTok is TikTok's mostly videos and Instagram is mostly pictures. I had no idea. But now I do. And I feel much more. I feel much more educated as a result of that. All right, let's keep going. Big one that's out there. This is a publicly traded company. It's not real big news, except it is big news. Caused them to go viral a little bit. I heard them talking about that on Good Morning LKN here. It could have been yesterday or even today. By the way, if you're not listening to Good Morning LKN, 7 to 9 every morning, Monday to Friday, you got Justin and Mamie and Bill on here. It's a great show. You got to listen to that. And don't tell me that you can't get it on your radio antenna or anything. Go get the app. Go get the WSIC app. Go on the Apple Store, the Google Store. Go on there, download the WSIC app. I use it all the time when I travel. You can listen to all the shows. You can listen to recorded shows, but you certainly can listen to the live feed as well. Again, Monday to Friday, 7 to 9. Justin, Mamie, and Bill. Great stuff. They were talking about this. And it's interesting. I think primarily because of the size of the company, but also in terms of just the impact points that they have as a company, and when they make changes or when they make alterations, what it means to the buying public. I'm looking at Walmart. Yeah, I'm looking at Walmart. They're a monster when you're looking at the size of the company that's out there. Ticker symbol Walter Mary Tom, WMT, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold Walmart. They made a change. Right? They made a change to their logo. And they've done this a couple of times. This is not the first time they've done it, but very interesting about how much attention has been given to Walmart, meaning in terms of the change to their logo and what the nuances are and what does it mean that the font changed a little bit and is that a sun or a burst or I don't know. It's very interesting in terms of how much impact it has been on the overall buying public in terms of wondering what it means. And I think in part it's because of how big Walmart is, right? They're huge. You're talking about, again, hundreds of billions of dollars in terms of market cap. So we're talking about monstrous companies here. And so I think that's part of it. I think it's in no small measure is because of how ubiquitous the Walmart name is now. And being able to identify that, certainly in terms of brand identity and brand intensity for that kind of thing. But it's been very interesting to see. So Walmart changed their logo a little bit, not a whole lot, but a little bit. They do that every once in a while. I don't think it's going to drastically change how they do their business, but still very interesting because it certainly has caught the attention of a lot of folks, especially on social media, about why did they do that? Does this mean that Walmart's going to start doing things differently? Who knows? Don't know at this point. We'll kind of wait and see. All right, let's keep moving here with regards to what's hot, what's sitting out there on radar screens. All right, I got to bring up one here. I'm going to bring up one before we get to the break. You know us on here, especially on dollars and cents. Yeah, we're looking at things economic and financial, but we also tie in one of our favorites constantly here when we're talking about all things financial. And that has to do with anything that has to do with good food. Yep, love to eat. It's kind of one of the requirements here. If you're going to be on WSIC, you got to love good food and good drink on here. So that's one of the reasons why we talk about it with some regularity. Interesting collaboration between Krispy Kreme, so Krispy Kreme donuts, and Pop-Tarts. Pop-Tarts owned by the Kellogg's brand. Kellanova now is how they're identified. Ticker symbol K is in Kelly on Kellanova. And for Krispy Kreme's, one of the best ticker symbols out there. I mean, literally listen to this, right? David, Nancy, Umbrella Tom, DNUT, as in dough, nut, or nut, right? I mean, perfect. They're in a collaboration. They got some kind of deal going on. 3 different kinds of flavors and varieties sitting out there in terms of their collaboration about what they're going to be doing with a new crispy or 3 new Krispy Kreme flavors. 3 different ones that are out there. I mean, they're talking about one Pop-Tarts frosted strawberry donut. Yeah, I'm good for that. Frosted chocolatey fudge donut. And then last but not least, the frosted brown sugar cinnamon donut. I mean, folks, that just those combinations, I'm all in. Sounds good. Thank you, Krispy Kreme. thank you to Pop-Tarts for coming to that collaboration. I'll be looking forward to those as they hit the Krispy Kreme shelves. Well, all right. Well, we're getting to the halfway point in today's show. Appreciate so much you hanging with us here on Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. We're going to take a minute to hear from our sponsors and be back here soon on WSIC.
More of Dollars and Cents with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi is coming up on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
We're emerging a bit from our big chill yesterday. Plenty of sunshine. Temperatures will climb back up to around 50 for this afternoon, even some low 50s in some spots around Lake Norman. Tonight we'll drop it back into the mid and upper 20s once again, back into the low and mid 50s for our Friday. We'll kick off our weekend on a bit of a wet note. Looks like rain likely for our Saturday morning. A bit drier for the afternoon and an isolated shower possible for our Sunday. That's your forecast for the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Hey folks, you know Randy Marion Ford Lincoln in Statesville is known for the prices and selection, but I tell you what, you may not have known the distinction that this store received with Ford and Lincoln this year. We received the President's Award for 2023 for Ford for the 5th year in a row. We also received it for Lincoln for the first year, and I tell you, those awards don't come easily. It all boils down to taking care of the customers and having the vehicles you want in stock for you to buy.
This is Fred Lowry at Lowry Drug. We now have our own brand of full-spectrum hemp extract, also known as CBD oil. I personally manage this product as it was grown on my farm here in Iredell County. It was then processed and bottled here in Statesville. This is a true herbal extract with all the medicinal components intact. A product you can trust to be authentic. And since there is no wholesaler, it's at a price you can afford. Try it at Lowry Drug on Hartness Road in Statesville.
Our military faces a crisis. Recruitment down. Morale weak. Our leaders more focused on going woke than killing terrorists and defending America. President Trump nominated Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense to change things. Hegseth isn't an insider or a swamp dweller. He's a decorated veteran of the United States Army who deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. And he's exactly who we need leading the Department of Defense. Hegseth will ban woke nonsense from our armed forces, strengthen our military, and make our soldiers proud to serve. Call your United States Senator at 202-224-3121. Tell them stand with Trump. Confirm Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense. Again, call your senator at 202-224-3121. Tell them to vote to confirm Pete Hegseth and make our military great again. Paid for by American Leadership PAC.
Hi, this is Bob McIntosh with the McIntosh Law Firm in Davidson. Since 1997, we have been committed to providing our clients with competent, caring, and experienced legal services. Learn more at McIntoshLawFirm.com.
Harrison's is the home of Work, Western, and wow! We're the Southeast leader in Carhartt, and nobody has more in-stock work boots. The store is filled with Ariat, Cinch, Wrangler, and more. Get great clothing and footwear for the whole family at Harrison's. Find us on Norman Station Boulevard in Mooresville.
Kane Center for the Arts. We're more than a venue. We're the heart of creativity in the Lake Norman region, bringing exceptional visual arts, performing arts, and unforgettable gallery experiences to our community. Discover the difference. KaneArts.org.
The #1 station for people who say we're their favorite station.
WSIC.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Microsoft is hiking the price on its Microsoft 365 subscriptions that provide access to Word, Excel, and other apps. It'll cost $130 a year for families, $100 for individuals. It's the first price hike in 12 years. Microsoft says it needs to generate more revenue to justify the company's AI investments. Americans stepped up their spending at stores and restaurants last month, and a clear sign consumers are still able and willing to shop. The Commerce Department says retail sales rose 0.4% in December from the previous month. That is down, though, from November's upwardly revised 0.8% gain. Target says its holiday sales were strong and is updating its forecast for sales in the fourth quarter, saying they'll rise 1.5% after previously reporting they'd be flat. Markets today are lower, down between a fraction and 0.4%. I'm Nancy Lyons, Bloomberg Radio.
Nothing but the best talk.
The area's best talk.
WSIC.
Dollars and Cents continues now. Here's your host, certified financial planner Joshua Dobi on 1059 100.7 WSIC.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Second half of today's show, Football Reference. You got 25 minutes exactly until we get to the 5 o'clock hour. And I appreciate so much you hanging with us here as we're giving attention to things economic and financial. We splashed in some anecdotes there as well. Just before we went to break there, speaking of anecdote, although I think this is pretty serious business. When it comes to food, I'm very serious about food, as you know. But we were talking about a collaboration between Pop-Tarts owned by Kellanova, ticker symbol K as in Kelly, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the company, and Krispy Kreme, one of the best ticker symbols of all time, DNUT, David Nancy, Umbrella Tom, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold their stock or bonds either, in a collaboration, 3 distinct flavors. Now, I was talking with producer Reese when we were on break here, just at the halfway point. He said, I really kind of like the strawberry Pop-Tarts. I said, I can't disagree with you here. Here's what the collaboration looks like, though. So Pop-Tarts frosted strawberry donut, right? An unglazed shell donut filled with strawberry filling, dipped in shortbread icing, topped with an astonishing amount of shortbread pieces, sugar sprinkles, a strawberry filling drizzle, and a frosted strawberry Pop-Tarts bites piece on top. I mean, I'm in. Producer Reese, I don't think there's anything else. I feel like... I mean, they're really. I mean, if you talk about that flavor combination right there, where do you go after that? I mean, especially if you're a fan of strawberry Pop-Tarts, that's about as good as it gets. Anyhow, I had to read that to you there. I appreciate you much. You hanging with us here in the second half of today's show. Talking about all things economic and financial, looking at what's happening around us out here. Talked about Walmart changing their logo a little bit, kind of interesting, right? Keeping things fresh, new, and certainly vibrant in terms of attraction points. Let's talk about one of their competitors, Target, ticker symbol Tom Green Tom, TGT. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock. Also came out with quarterly earnings. I was pleased to see coming from Target. Certainly not the same size. I mean, they are a fraction of the size of what Walmart is. Walmart, the largest retailer in the country by far, but Target's still very notable in terms of its size. Talked about having a very good Christmas retail season. Now, you heard me talk a lot at the end of last year, talking about the Christmas retail season being an indication of where the consumer is, the consumer being approximately 2/3, 3/4 of our growth as an economy, meaning our growth or non-growth as an economy. So when the big retailers come out and say that they're doing well and they had a good season, that's very important to me when I'm looking at the strength of the economy. Target came out, good holiday season, 2% increase in store sales, 9% increase in online sales. And boy, that's been a trend here over the last, let's call it, I would say decade now. Really has been pretty close to a decade where online shopping has just exploded in so many ways, in a positive way, but still significant increases there. Target saying a 9% increase in online sales, 2% increase, which was above expectations in terms of in-store sales during the Christmas season, looking specifically at November and December. Positive to hear that. That's a very good indication about where the consumer is. Not the only one. Like I said, it's just one data point on the spectrum there, but still good to hear that that Target did so well. Now, not so good news coming out of Meta. Well, I shouldn't say it that way. Not so good news coming out of Meta if you're on the employee side of things. And not that it's affecting everybody, but Meta being the parent company of Facebook that's out there, ticker symbol Mary Edward Tom Alpha, META, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock or bonds, announced they're doing a reduction in workforce of about 5%. Now, you're talking about thousands of people here because of how big that Meta is. 5% reduction in workforce. Some is going to be done through attrition, but others going to be done by layoffs here over the course of the next 12 months. So that's going to be interesting to see. I didn't get the indication that it's because Meta is struggling right now. It looked to be more of a case of reducing workforce that they felt was either redundant or unnecessary. Meta right now, one of the largest spenders in the AI universe, artificial intelligence universe right now on several different levels. And certainly in doing that, they are spending literally billions with a B in development, and they're spending billions with a B in acquisition of smaller companies who have a particular niche and maybe even focus in the genre of AI. And so does that mean that because they're spending so much there that they're reducing their workforce to loosen up some capital? It's possible for that kind of thing, but Meta is not doing poorly. Meta, from a cash flow standpoint, meaning free cash flow standpoint, Meta in terms of profit margins, doing very, very well. So kind of interesting to see that. Not the kind of thing that you usually see from companies who are moving so strong in terms of where they are currently and financially, but still very interesting to see that kind of thing. So we're going to be watching that and see if is Meta getting ready to make a move, or they're looking to make a larger acquisition, and that's why they're reducing some workforce in order to free up some capital. Anything's possible in that kind of thing. So just very interesting to see that kind of announcement made from Meta there. Also, along the job cutting line of things, again, not wanting to dwell too much on the negative, but definitely have to talk about it because of the size of the company. BP Amoco, the ticker symbol here in the US, under the ADRs, meaning the American Depository Receipts, which is the equivalent of a stock that is traded overseas. So the ADRs are receipts or representations of the stock that is traded outside of U.S. markets. Ticker symbol Bravo Paul, BP, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock there. Also talking about a reduction of workforce, cutting of about 5,000 jobs. Is it because of where the price of oil has been over the course of the last 18 months or so? In the low, now we're in the high 70s right now. But we fluttered a lot there in the low 70s, the mid 70s. When I'm talking about low to mid 70s, I'm talking about a barrel as traded in Cushing, Oklahoma, of a barrel of a bottle, bless, a barrel of WTI, West Texas Intermediate, one of the benchmarks that's used out there. So that's what I'm quoting as it's traded in spot pricing there in Cushing, Oklahoma. That we've been in the low to mid 70s range, 72, 3, 4, 5, 6 dollars per barrel. And now we're in a space where it's about 79 right now that it is. But is BP doing that because it hasn't moved all that much? Their margins are being squeezed a little bit. It's possible. Anything is possible. Maybe they're needing to free up some capital. Maybe they're going to do some more exploration here in the coming year. They're needing to have a little bit more firepower from a financial standpoint to be able to do that. Anything possible there, but still interesting to see that they're cutting about 5,000 jobs as well. Now, here's one that's not a publicly traded company, but certainly affiliated with a publicly traded company. I'm going to talk about one of the most well-known personalities that's out there, and primarily because of his connection to one of the most well-known companies that's out there. So I'm looking at Jeff Bezos, right? And Jeff and his company that I'm talking about today is going to be Blue Origin. Now, Jeff Bezos, of course, made his fame and his fortune with being really being the primary startup person for Amazon. Amazon, I mean, who doesn't know Amazon? I mean, if you don't know Amazon, just stand in just about any neighborhood and just watch for gray vans to go by, and you're probably going to get an idea about what Amazon is. I feel like they're everywhere. I feel like they're just nonstop, 24 hours a day delivery. I mean, my gosh, now it used to be there was next day delivery. Now you can get some stuff that's delivered in just a couple of hours. The ticker symbol on Amazon, Alpha Mary Zulu Nancy, AMZN. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold their stock either. But Bezos has also pursued similar ways to Elon Musk, but has also pursued through his other company, Blue Origin, not publicly traded, more space exploration. So they just recently had a successful rocket launch. Actually, I think it was literally yesterday or today that they had a rocket launch, got into orbit, and so now they're officially considered to be competition for Elon Musk's SpaceX company. Now, SpaceX has been launching rockets for quite some time, so they got a whole bunch of launches ahead of Blue Origin, but still very interesting to see that really this private money that's coming into the space exploration end of things, really a relatively new phenomenon in so many ways. And because really before that, it was really more government funded. Certainly here in the U.S., it was NASA, right? NASA was really primarily responsible for space exploration and for anything that had to do with significant and certainly ongoing rocket launch kinds of things. Not so true anymore. With SpaceX and now Blue Origin, you have privately funded entities which are putting significant payloads into space, connecting with the International Space Station. Certainly talk about exploration not only of the moon, but looking at Mars. Certainly Musk's SpaceX is focused on that. So, I mean, just very, very interesting to see. And what's that going to mean? Is there, this is always the question, is there going to be a successful profit model that's associated with that? I mean, as a private entity, at a certain point, the folks who are invested in that want to make some money. So it's going to be interesting to watch on that. And certainly we're going to pay attention to it. Certainly with those two personalities. How can you ignore them? My gosh, I feel like either one of them or both are in the news every day. All right. Hang with us here. We're going to hear from our sponsors one more time as we get ready for the fourth quarter here on Dollars and Cents, and coming back in a moment on WSIC.
There's more of Dollars and Cents with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi on the way from 1059 100.7 WSIC.
Or emerging a bit from our big chill yesterday. Plenty of sunshine. Temperatures will climb back up to around 50 for this afternoon. Even some low 50s in some spots around Lake Norman. Tonight we'll drop it back into the mid and upper 20s once again. Back into the low and mid 50s for our Friday. We'll kick off our weekend on a bit of a wet note. Looks like rain likely for our Saturday morning. A bit drier for the afternoon and an isolated shower possible for our Sunday. That's your forecast for the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. Thursday, January 16th, Ryan Winters performs at Bin 110 in Cornelius. Lake Norman's upscale night spot has over 450 whiskeys, 100 wines, and a full cocktail list to go through their live music lineup every Thursday through Saturday. Kick off the weekend early with the Ryan Winters music performance Thursday at Bin 110. Friday night, Bill Douglas performs at the Wine Maestro in Statesville. Join Bill for your favorite pop acoustic songs of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, plus flavorful originals. Bill Douglas performs in downtown Statesville Friday night at the Wine Maestro. Beer Lab in Mooresville presents their Paint and Sip Date Night series this Saturday. Come with your significant other or get your friends together for a fun night of painting and sipping. Meg Art Pottery will bring a variety of painting pieces to choose from. Your $30 ticket includes one pottery piece, paint, glaze, and firing. We will see you Saturday for the Paint and Sip Date Night series at Beer Lab in Mooresville. 'Tis the season to lace up your skates at Birkdale on Ice, happening now through January 26th. Birkdale Village in Huntersville has their ice skating rink ready, and they can't wait to lace up their skates with you. Ice skating reservations to ensure skating time slots are accepted. Walk-ups are also welcome. Go to BirkdaleVillage.com for details, information, and tickets to Birkdale on Ice. At Charlotte Motor Speedway, the action does not stop at being just a spectator at a race. You can drive a NASCAR race car by yourself. If you are looking to grab the wheel and drive a race car or take a NASCAR ride-along, then the Richard Petty driving experience will give you an unforgettable time. Book the Richard Petty driving experience today at 704-886-2400. Visit charlottemotorspeedway.com for details and more information. To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
We're back now with more of Dollars and Cents with your host, certified financial planner Joshua Dobi on 1059 100.7 WSIC.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Fourth quarter of today's show, football reference. You're in the stretch run. You're a 9 to 5, or you got 11 minutes, 55 seconds until you get to that 5 o'clock bell. Appreciate you hanging with us here. As we were going to break there, we were talking about just amazing amounts of investment being made now by private companies getting into space or space exploration or other kinds of space-related activities. We talked about Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin, not a publicly traded company at this point, but now in competition with SpaceX. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, dynamic, amazing kinds of things, literally cutting edge. Going to be interesting to see how that continues to take its shape. Now, these things I'm going to talk about next, not so cutting edge, but well, I don't know. Actually, I would say they are cutting edge. Talking food again. Looking at Pepsi, ticker symbol Paul Edward Paul PEP. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock. Coming out with a there's something out there, and forgive me, I'm not always, let's say, up to speed. I know this sounds like an old man thing. It's true. I'm an old man. That I'm not always up to speed on the current cultural trends. Is that a way for me to say it? But apparently there's something out there called dirty soda. So I'm looking at Pepsi, right? It's called dirty soda. And apparently these are additives, so it's not really dirty. It's not like you're pouring soda on the ground or anything like that. But apparently these additives to soda, which give it different flavors, different kind of taste experiences. Okay, I mean, I think that's. I mean, producer Reese is shaking his head, saying this is a thing. Producer Reese much more up to speed on this. I should have actually asked him first before I started talking about this kind of thing. Here's one that's out there right now that the Pepsi is literally this month going to be bringing out: wild cherry and cream. Now, if you are of a certain age demographic close to where I am, you recall, and I think they're still available in some spaces, maybe not as prevalent as they used to be, that cream soda was a thing. Meaning that that was something that was enjoyed in my youth, and there were a couple of different manufacturers that made it out there, and in cream soda, especially in the summertime. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. But apparently, it's making a little bit of a comeback. Pepsi's combining it with wild cherry flavored soda, and that's some kind of dirty soda, which I really don't understand because it's not really dirty, but I guess it's not actually pure soda, so very complicated. Anyhow, the kind of good stuff there that Pepsi's coming out with in another collaboration. Also, another group that's connected to Pepsi, Frito-Lay. Frito-Lay is an arm or a subsidiary of Pepsi. So we're still talking Pepsi and the parent corporation, but Frito-Lay in terms of snacks, potato chips, and I'm looking specifically at their Cheetos brand. Now, we're getting close to the Super Bowl. And one of the things that Cheetos apparently wanted to do was to maximize their possibilities for sales during the Super Bowl. Although I think that there are going to be plenty of people buying Frito-Lays no matter what, or Frito-Lay's related products during the Super Bowl time. But they're coming out with something. They're Cheetos brand. So if you're a Cheetos lover, one who enjoys getting the dust all over your fingers kind of thing. We were talking about that here while we were offline as well. But they're coming out for the Super Bowl a cheese pizza flavor. Now, I was trying to put that together. I think I can see it. I think I can see cheese pizza flavor and Cheetos, and I think it'd be very good. Actually, I was thinking as I was looking at this and doing my research that maybe I would have cheese pizza Cheetos in one arm, a bag of those, and maybe a bag of the of Pop-Tarts on the other side. You know, that whole salty sweet combination there. Wouldn't be such a bad idea, right? Anyhow, love talking about food here as well when we're looking at things all economic and financial. Let's pivot a little bit. Let's talk markets. I have to touch on this because it is a significant deal, and but also because of what it may mean relative to market impact, certainly on the real estate end of things in the Western U.S. and Southern California specifically. I'm looking at the LA wildfires, which as of the time of this live broadcast or as of this recording, about 12,000 structures have been burned, at least in ways in which that they're probably going to need to be demolished, and in some cases all the way to the ground. And the estimate at this point, from a couple of different sources, I'm seeing estimates of total damage or total economic value lost between 20 and 40 billion dollars. 20 and 40 billion dollars. Huge amount of loss. Probably going to be the single largest event in terms of loss that we have had in our country's history. We don't know yet. They're still not completely contained. Still damage happening. So we're going to wait and see on that. So one of the things that I, as part of my research, say, okay, what are the companies that have the largest insurance exposure in Southern California, on the residential housing end of things specifically? And two companies, State Farm, which is a mutual company, not a publicly traded company, meaning that the shareholders actually own the company. So State Farm and Farmers Insurance. Farmers Insurance is actually a subsidiary of a group called Zurich out of Switzerland. The ADRs, or the American Depository Receipts, trade here in the U.S. under the ticker symbol ZURVY, Z-U-R-V-Y. Again, Zebra, Umbrella, Roger, Victor, Yellow. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock. They appear to have the largest exposure in those areas. Now, that being said, as cataclysmic as the damage has been, the opinions that I have read about folks who watch the property and casualty industry closely say, yes, not good for the short run, but not a long-term hindrance to these companies in the long run. And that speaks to the financial solvency, but also the financial strength of these companies as well. It's very, very important. So as catastrophic and as tragic as the loss of property has been here in Southern California. Nothing that I've seen yet that would indicate that that certainly the larger insurers are going to be in a space where there's going to be long-term financial damage as a result of that. So I was glad to see that, but the restructuring of I mean, looking at 12,000 structures, I mean, you're looking at a lot of homes and a lot of very, very expensive homes. So these are not homes in middle America or in a housing development in many instances. Yes, there are some of those, but we're talking about one of a kind kinds of homes, homes not worth just millions, but in some instances, tens of millions of dollars. What is going to be the build back on that? Or is there going to be a build back on that? Kind of an interesting side note, not interesting really, but definitely a point of concern when you're looking at these kinds of things, that if you have a mortgage on a home that's burned to the ground, you still owe on that mortgage. That's not something that goes away. Now, can you get some forbearance for a short while? Probably. There can be extreme instances where banks will give you that kind of let's call it a delay in terms of making your monthly payments on that, but it doesn't go away, and those payments accumulate. So it's going to be very interesting to see on the financial standpoint, certainly with regards to the banks who are holding big notes on some of those most expensive properties. What's that going to mean in terms of the banks that are holding those? Are they going to let some go? Are they going to allow for folks to be able to be forgiven on those kinds of things? Doesn't look that way at this point, but it's going to be interesting to see how that takes its shape. And that's going to play into the larger market as well. So we're talking about insurance companies here, and we're talking about banks with the most direct impact in terms of what's happening there. That bleeds over. You heard me talk a little bit earlier about the fact that, the financial sector specifically has been doing much better, especially as interest rates have remained higher. You heard me talk about Bank of America earnings. You heard me talk about Morgan Stanley earnings. I mean, these are companies that have done these large banking centers that have done very, very well here in the most recent quarter. Now, is that going to be impacted in negative ways because of what's happening in Southern California? There's definitely going to be some impact. How much of that impact is going to be felt actually in quarterly or annual earnings reports? We don't know yet. We're going to have to wait and see on that end of things. But we're flipped over the calendar. We're into the first quarter of 2025. Gosh, we're halfway through the first month, as if you can believe that. It just blows by in such great light speed. But we've started the year kind of interesting, kind of in my world, washing machine kind of movement. Got some ups, got some downs, and mostly we're just kind of sloshing around a little bit in terms of market performance. The end of December really wasn't a Santa Claus rally at all. Very interesting to see, I think, that there was some anticipation, maybe even significant anticipation, that there was going to be what sometimes is called a little bit cliched as the Santa Claus rally, meaning that there is this uptick in the markets towards the end of the year. Well, I don't know about you, but if you were tracking the most popular stock indices as we made our way through the balance of the month and into the latter parts of the month and up to the new year, not exactly great. Not terrible, but definitely some pullback, 3, 4, 5% in terms of index pullback. And some of those high flyers that are out there that had huge years last year, some of those pulled back 8, 9, 10, 15% and more over the course of the month. Now, especially with the high flyers, that's going to happen. You gotta know that, right? If you got something that's gone up 150% in 12 months, folks, that's not normal. It's not. It really isn't. Even if you see companies do that, say, well, that's actually very normal. No, it's not. I mean, it's just not the kind of thing that you see naturally in stock prices. So when that kind of thing happens, whenever there is a little bit of a sell-off, it's natural that those companies that have done the best are going to pull back more. That's where folks are going to go sell, right? If you made 150%, comes down about 10%, you need to raise some capital, you're concerned about downside risk, you want to lock in your gains, whatever it may be, you're going to be doing that. You're going to be selling those companies, and that's what we saw in December there. So very interesting to see that kind of thing. What does that mean coming into Q1 of this year? I don't know yet. It's interesting, and I don't mean that to just throw up my hands and say, well, you figure it out. No, that's not what we do here on Dollars and Cents. But when we're looking at things, kind of interesting market that's setting up right now. Because on the one hand, we have higher interest rates, which can be, let's call it a headwind to economic growth, right? Higher cost of capital, more expensive for companies to do business, can slow down growth. Definitely can happen. But we really haven't seen that a whole lot yet. Unemployment still remains quite low. Economic growth, not great, but not bad when it's sitting out there. So what does that mean then coming into the first quarter of this year? I think the earnings reports are going to be indicative of the kinds of things that we're going to be watching. meaning that how strong are companies coming into the quarter, and how are they going to sustain in this higher interest rate for longer kind of environment. I think that's going to be a very big indicator. I think it's also going to be interesting to see how these high flyers kind of normalize a little bit because, folks, they have to. They do. It's not natural for even the high flying technology companies to go up 150% a year, or 200 or 300 or 500%, as some of them did over the course of last year. I hope you owned them. Hope you owned them before that happened, kind of thing. But it's going to be interesting to see, how does the market begin to take its shape, and how is it going to be then materialize in terms of how it's going to make the overall markets look. So we're going to be watching it. We're going to be bringing you what we see. You know that. That's what we do here on Dollars and Cents. Going to be happy to share it with you, and always happy to hear your feedback as well. Friends, thank you so much for hanging with us here on Dollars and Cents. Looking forward to being with you next week here at 4 o'clock on WSIC.
Serving you better than ever before. WSIC, Statesville, W290DK Moore's